Hey guys, my name is Maria Park, and this is Approach to Nerd. And in this episode, I'm with my good friend and Funimation voice actor and director extraordinaire, Apphia Yu. And we're just going to talk about how she got started in the business and what she thinks about anime and whatever else pops into my head. So here we go. Hi, Apphia. Thank you for doing this.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
I love you so much. I love your voice. I love when you open your mouth and words come out. It
Ah,
sounds amazing.
oh
Um,
my goodness, yeah, the flattery coming in strong and I'm soaking up all of it. I shouldn't
gotta
be.
pump you
It's
up.
bad.
Okay,
Thank you.
so
Thank
how
you.
long have you been with Funimation?
Oh my goodness. I think I'm cracking into year 13 at this point. So it's
Okay.
been a while. It's been a minute.
Do you remember the first show that you auditioned for and actually got cast in?
Oh, okay, wow. Trying to remember. The first show I auditioned for didn't actually get me cast, but the director then called me in for Walla for a different show, which I think counts. I don't know. My first show ever was Tower of Druaga, which I know everyone's like desperately Googling, what is that? I've never heard of it before. That's okay, neither had I. But I did Walla for that, and that was my first one. I think the first time I ever got cast proper off of an audition, oh my goodness, was it Robotics Notes? I got cast as Irie. I think that was it. I'm sure someone in the comments will inform me otherwise.
Well, what was the overall audition process for Funimation like from you getting called in? What did you have to do?
Okay, so back then it was you would get called in, you show up about 10 to 15 minutes before your allotted time, and they have these audition sides, which are essentially just a list of only your characters' lines. And you would look through them, you would look at the characters, and then when you get called back to the studio, you just read through all the lines, and the director tells you you did a great job, you're pretty sure they're lying, and you go home. Uh,
In that order.
in that order, in that exact order. They tell you you did a really good job. They're very sincere about it, but you're like, no, I was bad. Um,
How long was yours?
yeah. You only audition for like one show at a time, so it wouldn't take more than 10 minutes to get through it.
Okay, so in
So
my
it's a very
audition
quick
process, we
process.
had the sides too,
Mm-hmm.
but like he would make you change the voices. I mean, it was a process. I was in there for like
Wow.
40 minutes.
Dang. No, it's real quick. Like they would ask you to try a different voice or something if they thought that there was something in there that you were interested in, or oftentimes I think they'll be like secretly casting a character who's not in the sides.
Uh-huh.
So they want to hear what kind of voice you can pull out for that. But it was a real quick sort of thing. These days, because we're in the middle of a pandemic, you have to record all of your auditions at home
Oh,
instead
so
of
you're
going
one
to the
of home. So how
studio.
does that work? Do they send a kit home with you?
Some companies do. A lot of voice actors are sort of kitting themselves up at the moment, getting their own situation boxes, the nice Neumann microphone, Source Connect, Pro Tools, all of that stuff, sort of to keep themselves working and in the game. But the company could also just send you a kit.
Okay. So on your list here of
Mm-hmm.
wonderful voice roles, you have a lot of notable ones. One of them, if you see behind me, I don't know if you can see this
Mm-hmm.
doll right here.
Ah, yes.
Yes, I am a big a certain scientific railgun fan. I know that you actually have done voices in that. I think you
Yes.
were Kinahata in that one.
Yes.
But I know I was asked to ask about
Mm-hmm.
your involvement in One Piece and
Uh
Fairy
huh.
Tale. Those were the two shows that
Okay.
stood out to a lot of people.
All right.
So I want to know, number one, what was the audition process like for Fairy
Mm-hmm.
Tale? I'm going to start
Ooh.
there.
Well, thank you for mentioning Fairy Tale. It occurs to me that was probably the first thing I auditioned for that I got cast in. Um, it's so the audition process was a little nerve wracking because all of us knew that it was kind of going to be a big deal, and Tyler was super good about it. I was incredibly new at the time, and so he was really patient with me as I like nervously worked my way through it. And of course, I didn't get cast as any of the characters I auditioned for because the sides are normally just the main characters. And so I kind of just shrugged it off and assumed nothing was going to happen. And then he called me in for a Walla session. I thought, you know what? Walla's cool. I'm really excited about this. Again, it's like the first, second thing I've ever auditioned for. Well, it's fine. And at the session, that's when he had me voice this one line character off in the distance named Laki, of all people. And I didn't realize that she was actually going to be like a character in the show and a member of Fairy Tale, but I think she's the first named character I got after auditioning for a project. I'm pretty sure now. Watch me amend that in about 5 minutes.
Well, when you've been there for so long, it's hard to keep track of all that. But I do
It's
love your voice for Laki. Also, where was the inspiration for that voice? Like, did you just pull it out of characters you've heard previously from other anime? Is it something in your life you pulled that voice from? Where did Laki's voice inspiration come from?
So it is like sort of other anime at the start, especially when you're trying to get in. I mean, I still do watch a lot of other dubs and video games and everything, and you listen to sort of what the sound is and who's getting work and things like that. And while you don't do imitations of them, you sort of try to pick out what makes that work. Why are people interested in it? And you use that as inspiration to develop your own voices. And so for Laki, because I didn't have much to go on when I started, I was like, well, she's kind of cute and she has glasses. So I was trying to go for like the cute glasses girl sound or whatever and sort of pull from that from what I had heard other people doing.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so One Piece.
One Piece, yes.
Is
Whew.
it Abi? Now, I have not seen, I'm probably going to
Yes.
get shot by some of my viewers. I have not seen
It's
a one
okay.
episode of One Piece. It's because it's so freaking long.
It's
And
so long. I
it's,
mean, it's worth it, but it's long.
yeah, I
Um,
have to have more time in my day. I'm barely getting through one division, and that's only 9 episodes. So you guys,
I
you got
know, right?
to back. But but how did you get like cast for Abi? And also,
hmm
same question. What about the voice
Sure.
for that? Was there an inspiration that you heard
Mm.
that going forward you
Uh,
thought would be great for the character?
So for that one, there have been a couple of different directors over the course of One Piece, and in that case, I think it had just moved to Jerry Jewell, who is a fantastic human being, but he was kind of new as a director at the time. He had been working at Funimation for quite a while, and so we didn't know each other that well. And he called me in without an audition because the character was sort of reasonable enough, sort of encased in just one episode, where we could sort of get to know each other, see if our work styles mesh and things like that, um, and sort of just see how it works out. Directors oftentimes will call in new people and test them out on roles like that just to see what do you sound like, how do you respond to direction, do we click cohesively. I think it worked because, well, you mentioned Railgun earlier. He directed the later seasons of Railgun and Accelerator and Index and wound up pulling me as his assistant director. So I think we get along pretty well.
Yeah. Is that your first AD role with
Ah, my first AD role ever was for Assassination Classroom, actually.
okay.
Um, it was for the first season, Joel McDonald, who directed, called me in to assistant direct. And then as time went on, because he was working on One Piece at the time, wow, it does pass through a lot of different directors. He wound up sort of shifting over into focusing on One Piece and handed it over to me. So by the time we got to season 2, I was actually directing the show completely.
Oh, so that was your first full directing.
Yes, that was my first full directing gig as well
Oh.
as my first assistant directing gig.
Okay. And so how does
Uh,
that work? Like, do they just say, I like how you take direction. I think you'd be really good at directing and come in here and let's see what
mm,
you do? Or is there an audition? Do you ask? Do you go to someone and say, I would like to be a director? Like,
I
how does that work?
think it's different for everyone. In my case with Joel, I was already directing outside of that. I've been directing some video games and visual novels, and he was in one of them. And so, because we worked together, he was familiar with the fact that I was a director. He really liked sort of my process and how well it clicked with his. And so, when he needed an assistant director who could sort of vibe the same way, that's why he called me in. He already knew about it. I feel like everyone sort of has a different journey to become director, but oftentimes it is just sort of like making sure that a director knows that you're interested.
Okay, and see, I'm looking at your credits now, and you have a long list of voice corrector credits. Like I see
Yeah.
Code Realize, Classroom of the Elite, Higurashi, When They
Mhm.
Cry. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. So you seem to be doing something correctly.
Yeah, well, I vibe pretty well with most people. The thing is that every director approaches things really differently. And I think sometimes it's really hard to sort of click in with their style and their vision and what they're looking for. And I don't think that's a bad thing because I like sort of the creativity and the things that come out of it. but that's probably why a lot of people do struggle coming in as an assistant director instead of just being a director. And I tend to click pretty well with other people's styles. So I think that's why I have a lot of those assistant director credits on top of my own director credits.
Okay. Yeah, very adaptive, I guess, is a better way of
Yeah,
uh
I like it. I really like following other people's styles because I feel like I learn so much from the process. It sort of helps me fold in new ideas and new things and new approaches I never would have thought of on my own. So it makes me really excited to be able to jump in and do it.
That's awesome. So here's a weird question. I have a theater and film background. So I'm
Yes.
used to, in theater especially, if you get
Mm-hmm.
characters, you journal. So I'm in a class now called How to Be a Villain. I
Ah,
take it on Tuesdays. It's awesome. And we're
nice.
doing breaking down monologues. Right now we're doing Silence of the Lamb. It's amazing. So, do you ever find yourself when you get cast, not
Mm-hmm.
only research, because I know you research the heck out of the character because you want to make sure you may want to even find clips on YouTube, but do you ever just research them to the point where you start journaling and coming up with your own story in your head on how to approach it? You know, staying obviously in context with the script, but saying, maybe there's a trauma behind this. This is why this person is an a-hole. Or
Mm.
maybe, do you ever do anything like that?
For anime, not so much, and that's largely because the goal is sort of to fit within the shape that the Japanese track has already built for you. So I try not to break out of it too much if I can help it. But for other things, for video games and original projects and things like that, absolutely. I did do theater for a while, so I'm quite familiar with journaling. I don't do it as often anymore, but definitely when it comes to original characters, I'll at least like take some notes and try to do like the 10 question questionnaire and answer as the character to see if I could sort of guess. And if I'm lucky, especially with like a lot of indie projects, you can always reach out to the writer and just ask them, and it's fantastic because you get all this extra wealth of knowledge and they're so willing to share all of that stuff with you. So for those things, yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so talk about your acting background. I know you said you did theater. So,
Yes.
what do you have a degree in theater?
I do not have a degree in
Okay.
theater, but I did do a lot of community theater, like as a kid and stuff. When I was just a wee child, when I was a baby, my parents volunteered me to be in a nativity scene as baby Jesus
Oh,
himself. So the first role I ever played was God incarnate. It's been all downhill from there.
that's amazing. Do you take voiceover classes to keep up or just improve your craft now?
I did for a while. I actually had a voice coach for quite some time, which was really, really useful. At this point in time, I don't, not because I'm like, haha, I've made it, but I know, we're in a pandemic, okay?
We are in a pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah, but that doesn't change the fact that there are still spaces you can find to practice with other people and learn from other people, even if you're not taking actual classes. And so I do tend to seek those out. A lot of reading out loud, table reads, things like that.
Okay, when you prepare for a session, what do you normally do?
Mhm. Drink a lot of water. I always forget to hydrate, and I really shouldn't. So don't tell. Oh, oops. Now it's on the internet. The usual warm-ups, things like that are really important. It's when you're in theater, it's easy because you're with all of your castmates and you can do it together and you can really get into it. And when you're doing voiceover, because you're typically quite alone in the booth, it's not as easy to get sort of into that energy all on your own and to put yourself into it. Sometimes I'll just watch anime, like a dub that I really like, or now that Funimation has that sort of a, what's it called? The simuldub. There we go, the simuldub system. I can even watch episodes that we've already dubbed just to be like, all right, what does everyone else sound like? What did I sound like? How are we getting here? And get into that space.
Yeah, I think the release schedule on that is probably a lot better than
It's
before. Yeah.
wild, man.
That must be the turnaround. Have you directed a simuldub?
Oh
Yeah.
yes, every show I've directed has been a
Every
simuldub.
one of them?
Every single one. Oh man,
That means the
it's
deadlines are crazy.
it's a trip. It is
Well,
definitely a trip.
that's hilarious. So tell me about My Hero Academia. I mean, that's another one
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of people are obsessed with. A lot of people.
Yeah.
And don't whisper it. I haven't
Uh,
seen the episode.
I am very, very barely involved with that one, but I voice, oh goodness,
Tamaki, I think.
Tamaki, yes.
Yeah.
Amajiki, that's what it was. I
Yeah.
almost said a different name, and it would have been so embarrassing. I voiced the young version of Amajiki in his flashbacks, and that was fun for me because I didn't know what I was doing when I went in at that point because it's such a small thing. They don't necessarily tell you ahead of time what you're doing. And popping in and being like, surprise, this is who you're playing. Aaron Dismuke voices the older version, and he is just a fantastic human being all around. And so I was like, oh no, it's gonna be so bad. I'm gonna be so bad compared to him. This is but it's fun to try to like they played some of his reads for me so I could sort of figure out where he was taking the character and things like that and bounce off of that. And that was a lot of fun, and just trying to sort of match his reads and figure out where he was great. It was the whole thing was really short though. Like I think I spent less than half an hour on it.
Oh, wow.
So my journey with My Hero Academia very short, but it was fun while it lasted.
Okay, so let's talk about your video game work. I know
Okay.
you direct a lot. What are some of your
Yes.
notable roles that you remember for video games?
Roles are like things that I direct.
Maybe both. So maybe like your
Both.
top three
Okay.
that you've been in that are
Mm-hmm.
memorable, and then the top three that you enjoyed. And I know you enjoy everything in a different process, but the ones you got the most out of. See, I disclaimer that real fast. The ones you
That's
got
good.
the most enjoyment out, of, or maybe something that you related to more is
Mm-hmm.
probably a better way of saying that.
All right, top three that I'm in. Well, my number one is A Hat in Time. That was probably the most fun because coming in on it, they didn't have any ideas of how they wanted the character Hat Kid to sound. So it really was this really cool collaborative process where we built her sound from the ground up. And one of the things that I was pulling at the time was Wind Waker, Zelda, and Link makes all these delightful little noises in it. And so I was sort of pulling ideas and inspirations from that for Hat in Time, and that was a lot of fun. And she's just a fun and ridiculous character who gets to run around and steal things and yell at stuff and kick. And I love her. Hat Kid is so much fun. I would play her forever if I could. So that's definitely my number one.
Okay.
Um, so this one is from a game that probably didn't hit quite as big, but I had like way fun recording it. Is Beatrix from Battleborn. I came in sort of at the end. She was this new DLC character, so the game had already been out for a while and things like that. But her character is just this gothic Lolita mad scientist with a giant syringe for an arm and like big mechanical wings. So her design is completely my aesthetic already, which made me way excited to work on it. And it's just a lot of like sort of really intense screaming and mad scientist stuff, and she likes to take people apart and put them back together in different ways. So it's fun, sort of, to unleash that sort of feel to it. And third, ooh, goodness, there's so many. You know, the first two are easy, but then you have to think about who you're going to
The
be
third
leaving
one, I
out.
know.
Yeah. um. All right. So the characters themselves don't get to spend a lot of time in it, but the game is one of my favorites, and it's Battle Chef Brigade,
Okay.
which is this sort of fun puzzle game set in a fantasy world where you play as these chefs who go out and hunt these creatures, and you bring them in and you chop 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 on sort of this Iron Chef style stadium in these cook-offs against each other. And the game is so much fun because it combines the puzzle element with like this sort of platformer type thing, and the story's really cute. And so being involved in that, even though it was kind of like to a small extent, was a lot of fun, and getting to play it afterwards is like, this game was made for me. It's so good. And the art is so good too. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, so those are probably my top three in terms of things that I've been in.
Okay.
When it comes to directing, it's cheating, but Backstage Pass and the GSA games and stuff are my favorite because I also wrote them.
Makes sense.
So there's that. But Backstage Pass is also like this big project. It was the first big project I've ever done. It's how I met Joel McDonald, in fact, because he's in it. And that was really, really special to me. And I think it will remain incredibly special to me, essentially forever, because it was my first big one.
I see you also were in Fallout 4 as Alice Yoon. Now, was that a big role? Because I
Yes.
haven't played it. That was a pretty big role.
Um,
See, I
so
just
it's
showed that
actually
I
a
didn't see it.
mod.
It's a
So the thing
mod?
about Fallout is you can mod in all these things, and so that mod was made by Casey Montelo. I think you know them,
Yeah.
who does a whole bunch of really cool mods for all sorts of video games. And one of the things that they did was add this sort of radio plugin and extra characters and things like that. And so they wanted to put a lot of their friends in it and called me up, and I was like, yeah, sure, totally. So that's how that one happened.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I was looking at it. I was like, oh, I just happened to snap. I'm like, there's Fallout.
Yeah, good
And you were
times.
also, so was the Dragon Ball Xenoverse one as well, or is that more Funimation?
That was Okratron, which is a different studio,
Chris Sabat's.
but
Yeah, I
yeah,
used
that's Chris
to
Sabat's
know that
studio,
one.
but it is Funimation adjacent. Like,
Okay.
they do tend to work with a lot of the same pool of talent. And so in that one, it's not a character that I play. I'm one of the selectable voices for when you create your character. I think I'm male voice number two? Trying to remember. But yes, one of those.
So that was my next question. Do you like voicing male characters more than female, or is there a difference for you? Which one's more challenging?
No, I like all of it. I think it's really nice. It's a good space to allow me to sort of express myself very naturally. And I think one of the nice things about anime is the fact that a lot of times male characters can have a actress or whatever voicing them, and also that a lot of the characters tend to be pretty androgynous or blur the gender lines, and those are very special to me, so it makes me incredibly happy that I get cast as those.
Yeah, I had a recent interview with another voice actress who naturally has a very high registered voice, and she said
Hmm.
it's harder for her to do cutesy than to do
Yeah.
very young or like
Hmm.
sometimes teenage boy voices, and she prefers boys. I thought that was really interesting. So now
Yeah.
it's one of my questions because I know that you have done a good share of male
Hmm.
characters at
Yes.
Funimation and beyond. So that's cool.
Hmm.
So I have a question for you from one. So I basically went on Facebook and asked people through direct messenger that are a part
Hmm.
of my subscriber count on
Got
YouTube.
it.
What would you like me to ask Afia?
Oh,
So
uh-oh. Okay.
now remember, I know
Danger
nothing about this.
questions.
Nothing about this. Okay, so apparently you were in Love Live Sunshine.
Hmm.
What do you think of you? Is you a good person? Sometimes I don't know.
Oh my goodness. Uh so Yo is a really fun character.
Oh.
It's interesting because everyone else has these very big personalities and these strong quirks, and she's a very stabilizing force over the course of the series, which is funny to me because that's kind of where I slot into most of my friend groups and at work, where I'm surrounded by people who I love who have these really big personalities, and I tend to be a little more grounded, so I just get to sit and watch and be like, ah, look at that. Cool. I think the one thing that I really like about her is she is good at cooking and she makes good puns. There's the episode where they were making food and she made yakisoba, but she called it yokisoba, and I was like, oh my girl, oh, I get her. I love her. Please, please protect. She's so good. She's so good. I love her. I love her. So okay, that answers the question. Clearly, I think that she's quite a good person.
Yeah.
Because of the food and the puns. Wow, I'm easy. Uh, but also, I really appreciate, because we all have sort of that friend in our lives who really encourages us when we're down and you're chasing your dreams, and sometimes it doesn't feel like it's working out. And they can be there for you and they can be there with you in those spaces. And I really, really like her for that.
That's awesome. So that answered that question, guys.
Thank
All
you for
right.
asking.
These are very, I love how obscure these are. Okay. So
Ooh,
I
ooh,
actually
that's
know
fun.
this series, so this is really interesting. I
Uh
didn't know you played this. Garo the animation. So it
huh.
seems
Ooh,
that you
uh
were
huh.
very good as the kid Leon in the
Yes.
Garo anime. Have you ever watched the live action series that this
Oh,
is based
wow.
on?
I have not. I know I should. I actually do enjoy shows like that quite a bit, but like that one in particular, I have not seen.
Yeah, that
If
one would be
anyone wants to
harder
just,
too. Yeah,
yeah,
because Takusatsu is really hard, especially since I
yeah.
think the original Garu came out in like
Mhm.
2010 or 2011, or maybe earlier.
Yeah.
So I guess that would be really hard. But yeah, they were coming for you with that one.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good question. It's a worthy question. If anyone ever wants to like tweet me recommendations, I'm down for it.
Yeah. No, don't say
But no,
that.
I
Don't do that
haven't
all
seen
day
it.
with a
No,
5 pound list
go
of
for it.
Takusatsu. Okay, Assassination Classroom. You played
Yes.
Rio. Is
Yes.
Rio evil? Like,
I'm gonna go yes. She is. She's a kid. Listen, they're all kids. And while that doesn't excuse their behavior, because, just because someone's young and doesn't know any better doesn't mean you shouldn't tell them. She does do a lot of things where I'm like, girl, you can't do that. Girl, you shouldn't do that. She is a troublemaker, and to that extent, I think it's fun as long as her friends understand and accept and are fine with it. But she does cross the line a couple times, and I'm like, no. I mean, I know that you're like 13 or something, but I hope she's smart, and I think that as she grows up, I would hope that she would learn better. But yeah, there are a couple scenes, especially with her and Karma causing trouble, where I'm like, a little bit evil, little bit.
just a little bit.
little bit. I do love her though. I love her very much. I don't want anyone to think otherwise.
Yeah, this is more of a statement. I loved you as Marie in Black Clover. You're my favorite.
Oh, thank you.
So,
Marie's fun. I have like
okay.
this. Oh, earlier you were asking if I journal or have ideas for characters, and I said no. That's a lie. It turns out I have this. It's not a head canon because I don't want. It's a hope. It's a wish. It's a desire in my heart. I hope that eventually the story goes on long enough, or we get a time skip of enough time that she's a little bit older and gets to join a group as a magic knight, because I think that would be fun. But for now, I'm happy with her and I love her.
Oh, yeah. Apparently, they love you as her too.
Oh, thank you.
Here's an interesting one.
Ooh,
Why
uh-oh.
were you not cast as Mercury or Venus in Sailor Moon by
Why?
Viz?
Uh, well, it was dubbed out in LA, which is different studios are out there. Funimation is Texas based. I know a lot of people do work back and forth, and while I certainly wouldn't mind, it is a little bit hard to crack into that egg if you don't know anybody. And so there is that. I would, of course, love to be any sort of magical girl. In fact, weirdly enough, 13 years in, and I have not been a magical girl once, which is that's like the thing. That's
Wow.
the bucket list. The thing that I want is I would love to play a magical girl. It'd be great. Uh, but I think that the cast for the Sailor Moon dub is fantastic. I love them all. But I would have liked to audition, of course.
Well, this is a comment or question after my own heart, being a Nadesco
Okay.
fan. So, Martian
Ooh.
successor Nadesco, if
Yes.
Funimation decided to redub the ADV version,
Mm-hmm.
who would you want to play and why?
Who would I want to play? Oh my goodness. What's her name? Rudy?
Literally, the one that says
With
Baka all the
the
time. That's Lurdy.
Yes.
Lurdy.
Oh,
Yeah.
she's my girl. I'm so into that. I really, really like her. I feel like that's the only one. Like honestly, I love the whole cast. I love the whole show, but she's the one that I would just let me
Yeah.
audition for her.
Yeah.
Ah.
I could see you doing that actually.
I love her so much.
Okay, let's see here. So, a Ruby fan.
Ooh, okay.
So
Me
I
too.
see in the credits you did Young Ren. Are you going to
Yes.
be cast as anyone else in Ruby, or is that not up to you?
It is, of course, not up to me. If it were, I mean, I would like to. I would definitely like to return because it's a fun show. They were a really fun team to work with because it is an original animation. You have all this extra space to be able to play with your reads and your characters without having to match animation. And that was a really good time. I did enjoy recording for them. And of course, I would be happy to come back. It's a great show, it's a great cast, good team, etc., etc. But it is, of course, not up to me. Uh, don't don't start a campaign. I hear it gets really upsetting when people tweet at them too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they've been under a lot of fire, especially with the website going paid.
Mm-hmm.
So pay to
Yeah.
play for volumes 8. Yeah.
Oof.
There, I review that series, so I know all about the drama.
Ah,
Um
yep. There's always drama.
Always drama. It wouldn't be fun if it wasn't.
Oh
Um,
boy.
okay, so what about? Hold on, let me see
Hmm.
if I can actually read this correctly.
Sure.
I'm gonna paraphrase because I don't think this person's first. Nothing wrong with this, but I don't think the first language is
Hmm.
English. So 1 second.
Well, that's okay. Anyone who's multilingual, I respect you so much. Uh, whew, I try. I do try to learn other languages. I know just enough to get in trouble in Japan and Korea, and not enough to get out of trouble once I get into it. It's very bad.
I'm learning Korean. I was pretty good with
Mhm.
Japanese, and now it's messing me up because I'm learning Korean because of the Hangul is
Yeah.
so similar. Some of the characters, it's just like, oh my
Mm,
gosh.
yeah, I did. I took Spanish when I was in high school, and I was fine then. But because it's like just the classes that you take, it's just all the sentences like, "How are you? The sky is blue. I like books."
Yeah, my mother was British. She was from Scotland, and so my
Hmm.
first language was Gaelic.
Ooh,
And
wow.
yeah, I know it's so odd, right? And then my dad
Hmm.
is half Native American, half Black, so it was just a
Hmm.
whole crazy
Dang.
thing in my
Yeah, there's a
house.
lot.
They spoke
Uh,
German to each other because my dad was military and I was born over there. So
ah, yep.
yeah.
But yeah,
You
so
just
anyway,
don't
shout
know.
out to anyone who's multilingual, especially if English isn't your first language. It's a dumb, hard, stupid language with dumb, hard, stupid rules.
It really is.
I'm
It
sorry.
it really is. Okay, I think what they're saying is if you can be in any anime
Mhm.
ever, what would it be? And they said, who would you voice it? I'm thinking they're just saying,
Mhm.
how would you come up with the voice for that
Okay.
character?
Any anime ever. Again, Magical Girls. It's my bucket list. I would do it. Although to bounce off of a previous conversation, even better would be like either a magical boy or perhaps, someone who's gender fluid or non binary. That would be so much fun. I would absolutely love to do something along those lines. So, any sort of magical friend series, I am absolutely there for it. For a series that is existing now, it's a little bit bad luck to put out into the world the exact thing that you want to do because it's eh. But I think also a shonen series, one of those like fun shonen jump style power friendship things, I would really, really like to be in. As for preparing for it, I always read the manga if I can get my hands on it. And usually, at least back in the day, you could watch the whole show. These days, you can't because of the simuldub thing. So I would watch the one episode currently available and jump in on it that way.
That's awesome. So this question is, are you a Yuri fan? And if so, did you watch the new series Adachi Toshimura?
Yuri fan. Depends on the show. I typically don't go for genres so much as like I like to watch the best thing in every genre. And I have heard that Adachi Toshimamura is really, really good, so it is on my list. The last one I saw, and it's cheating a little bit because I was in it, was Kase-san and Morning Glories, which is actually done by Sentai. And that was so sweet and cute, and the art is so good, and I love it. But it's definitely on the list to watch.
Well, see, that's on my list to watch because someone gave it to me for Christmas. So now that I
Ah.
know that you're in it, who did you play in that?
Mikawa, so she's the best friend who she's got glasses, and there's this great scene. I don't want to spoil it, but she is motion sick. And so I got to make some noises, which I'm very proud of. No
That's
spoilers
adorable.
beyond that.
No spoilers.
Yeah.
Okay. Sub versus dub.
Sub
That's
versus dub,
yeah.
whatever floats your boat. I know some people who even enjoy both, and I think it is incredibly weird to make other people consume content the same way you do. Oh, this is where I'm gonna get all that fire. Everyone's gonna come. This is it. This is the spicy take that's gonna get me in trouble, and everyone's gonna be mad at me. Here come the angry tweets. My spicy take is whatever makes you happy.
That is not a spicy take. The spicy take is if you can read it without subtitles, good
Mhm.
for you. If not,
Yeah.
listen to the dub.
Like I
Um,
do tend to watch I do watch a lot of like Raw even without the subtitles, just sort of to keep my Japanese up. And so if I
Yeah.
wanted to be that jerk, I could be like, sub or dub, excuse me, Raw. But see, that's a jerk move as well.
Yeah.
I think whatever is good for you, whatever helps you enjoy the story, is probably the one that you should be watching.
Yep. I have those same debates on Netflix. So, like, do
Ooh.
I want to watch the sub? Do I want to watch the dub? Just depends.
Mm,
It
yeah,
depends also on
depends.
the quality of the dub track, to be honest,
Yeah,
and the
it's
quality of the sub
absolutely.
track. Because even if
Mm,
you don't speak a language, Ramen One Half to me has always been better dubbed. It just
mm-hmm.
is. So, just
Yeah.
I guess it just really depends on that.
Yeah,
Um,
I have a tendency if the show is set in Japan and is distinctly Japanese, like about Japanese history, I
mhm,
do prefer to watch it in Japanese. And it sort of leans towards if the show is set, it's like one of those fantasies or isekai that's in a very European inspired country. I think it vibes with me a little better in English, but those are
yeah.
just personal things, and it could change on a dime depending on which show it is.
Yeah, I'm like that too, except for K drama. It's just something about watching K drama in dub form
Mm,
that it's
yeah.
just I don't
Oof.
get people choking when they're angry in the
Yeah.
dub version.
Yeah.
Like, I need that. I need to have something visually because sometimes I'll watch it. I'm like, there's no sound effect and his mouth's moving.
Yeah.
Like,
Ooh.
yeah. All right. I'm not sure how Avatar, aware or literate you are, the
Okay,
world of
go for it.
Avatar, but this is the question. Don't shoot
Okay.
me. This is a spice take.
Ooh, spicy,
Aang or
spicy.
Korra?
Anger Cora. Oh my
I
goodness.
feel like backing out of this frame for a
Oh
minute.
boy, here come the spicy takes. So I have seen all of Avatar, the for both series, and I think it's an unfair comparison. I know a lot of people get down on Korra, and I don't disagree. She behaved very immaturely over a long section of the series, but I recently had cause to rewatch it, and I realized I'm mostly mad at the adults in her life. She's still a teenager, but by teenage years, you should understand certain things about the world. And yet, in the first episode, when she goes to Republic City, she doesn't know that homelessness exists.
That she needs
And
money.
and that she needs
Yeah.
money. And
Yeah.
because she was raised in seclusion by all these people, they never once taught her that there are societal problems. They never taught her how money works. They never taught her about the history of the Fire Nation's colonization of other places. They didn't teach her any of this, even though it's her job to add political balance to the world. Like, excuse me, what? And sure, she could tap into like her previous avatar states to learn about it, but up until like, what about the past? What, 16 years? Is she 16?
She
They
was,
don't know
yeah.
about any of those. You
Yeah.
know, the adults in her life know current events and they haven't bothered to teach her any of these things. Why? 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 She didn't respond well. I am not fond of how she handled it, but she also wasn't equipped at all to handle any of this, and that just makes me mad.
Yeah.
So my spicy take is, yeah, she ain't great, but she was done dirty by the adults in her life, and I think it's super, super unfair considering that Aang was raised with being able to travel the world even as a kid, that he was given all of this knowledge and extra stuff, and so he did do a significantly better job, but he was also way better equipped. And so I
Yeah.
don't think it's a thing that you can compare that well.
I agree with that. I mean, the White Lotus basically made it so her only friend was a bear dog. I mean, it
Yeah.
was like
And
that
it's
was
like,
her
why would
only
you do
friend
that?
for
And,
years.
it doesn't absolve her of the fact that she made some bad choices,
Yeah.
lots of bad choices. And of course, she could at least ask her previous lives for some idea of what's going on. But, to live it, to actually visit all these places, to get to know the people, that's the only way that you could actually develop yourself. And the fact that they refuse to let her do it is like, dang, guys, come on.
Yeah. Well, and then I always like one of the things I think is a spice take is that people act like the Avatar legacy started from these like really noble beginnings. And
Hmm.
no, it was from a thief who stole the ability to firebend. That
Yeah.
was the initial, that's how
Hmm.
the Avatar cycle began by
Yeah.
stealing.
And
So,
like even Aang was really childish at the start because he's a child. I
yeah.
don't blame him for it, but season
And
1 I'm
Korra
like,
had
come on, dude.
PMS. I love them both. I've
Yeah.
got an Aang, I've got a Korra, Funko. No, I love them both.
This is the
I
rest
will
of the
fight for both.
video. We're just going to talk about
Yeah. No, I just like I don't know what it is, but I have this
Mm-hmm.
one person, Mr. X443, who asks this
Uh-huh.
question every time I interview someone. It's
Mm-hmm.
always in that thing. Remind me
Sure.
what to ask. Aang versus Korra. I'm
Sure,
like,
why
you just
not?
want to fight.
Um, yeah, you're looking for that. There we go. There's the spicy take. It's
Yep.
not a fair comparison.
It's not.
I'm not necessarily an apologist for Korra because, especially in the first season, it was like, girl, you gotta make better choices. But her situation, I'm not entirely sure I would have been any better, as
Yeah.
it were. But if you're
But
asking who my
but this
favorite
is you're doing
avatar
a good
is,
job though. This is not
uh
a
huh.
spice take. The biggest spice take is if I say Korasami with a question mark. Now, as a queer
Ah,
woman in an LGBT marriage, I see both sides of this argument, and we're
uh
not going to
huh.
waste time on it here.
Uh
But
oh. Okay.
I see both sides. I mean, they didn't have time to flesh out their relationship, but
Mm.
then people have to realize that Nickelodeon, especially when this aired, did not have
Yeah.
queer content in general on a
Yeah.
kids show. So for them to even allow them to have that moment of like looking at each other and holding hands, that was a momentous thing. You
Mm-hmm.
know, my
Yeah.
by that time, I think my marriage had just become legal. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I had the ability to get married in the
Yeah.
time they aired that, and it wasn't even aired on TV; it was online.
Mm-hmm.
So when you
Yeah.
look at all of that, then yeah, of course, you know, it's not something they planned to do initially, but yeah, that's a thing that gets people spiced up. So
Yeah.
I'm like, this is
Well, all right. Like Korra, could have been better. Could have been a lot better, but restricted by the authority figures in her life. There
yep.
you go.
I like that. I like how you dive that in. All right, so here we go. Do you like live action dubbing better than animated dubbing?
Ooh. Uh, no. For two reasons. The first one is that typically the schedules on those are a lot shorter, so we have a lot less time, and I do like to take my time to sort of like fine tune all the little details. And the other reason is because you can see the shape of the mouth in a very human way, it's quite weird to look at. There's a cognitive dissonance when the sound coming out of the mouth doesn't necessarily match the shape. Whereas with animation, because they draw much simpler phonemes, it's a lot easier to get away with putting other words into their mouths. So I think for the viewer, it's a slightly disconnected experience in a way that animation isn't. And then in terms of actually making it, you gotta go a lot faster.
That makes sense. That makes sense. This is a weird one. I don't even know if I want to read this one.
Uh oh. Oh.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Okay. Whew.
So, with all of the actors that you have worked with at
Uh huh.
Funimation,
Uh huh. All
if
the
you were to
actors.
gender swap
If I were to gender.
Goku, Chi Chi, Vegeta, Piccolo,
Oh
and
man.
three of the main characters that you like in Dragon Ball,
Uh
all the
huh.
way to GT and
Uh
beyond,
huh.
who would you cast?
Oh, so you asked me to cast a gender swap. Oh my goodness. Uh, unfortunately, and oh no, here's the spicy take that's gonna get all the. I don't know Dragon Ball or the mythos that well, as it turns out. Like I've seen a couple episodes. A lot of my friends are way into it, and we can kind of chat. But I don't actually know it that well. However, just by asking the question, I would be delighted to hear Elizabeth Maxwell play a female version of Vegeta.
Oh no.
Uh, she has a beautiful voice. She has a very intimidating sound, despite being a lovely human being in real life. And that would warm my heart. I can't really think of anybody else at the moment. This is a fascinating question.
Yeah, I've never.
Um,
That's a new one.
it's not come up before. This is a new. Congrats! This is the first time I've heard this one.
You're
Uh,
bending Dragon Ball. Wow.
yeah.
Huh.
Wow.
I'm having
That's a
issues
new
and I know the
one.
characters.
That's that's very new.
I mean, I think having Sunny go from Krillin to Bulma would be absolutely
That would
hilarious.
definitely. Wow. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I can hear it.
That would be
Um,
hilarious.
yeah. Dang. That is a question. I'll have to
Okay.
think on that.
We're gonna have to come back to that, guys, because that's just
Yeah,
it's
but
a good
thank
question,
you.
but it's just
It's
very
thought
involved
provoking.
and a little crazy. So I'm like, and I don't want to have that in my head the rest of the day. I have 2 more videos to do today.
Oh boy.
Okay. Do you like the star? I'm just gonna say space
Star.
drama. I don't know what
Uh
this word
huh.
is. So I think they're saying, do you like the space genre, and do you see
Uh,
yourself ever being cast in something like that? And
ah.
would you like to work in live action acting? And if so, more than vocal acting?
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
So space dramas, as before, depends on the drama. I'm in the middle of watching The Expanse right now,
Oh,
and
I
it
love that.
is so good. It
So
is so
good.
good. Anime wise, I did briefly work on directing Space Battleship Yamato, and that was a fun one. I think a lot of people remember it very fondly from their childhood, and so it was fun to sort of get to work on the remake for that one. I'd be excited to. We talked about Nadeshko earlier, and yeah, I'm really into that. I think it depends on the drama. I would, of course, be very excited to have anything with giant robots, anything that involves inexplicable galaxy idol singers. Big fan of those. I have done a little bit of live action. I'm not against it, but I sort of kind of only take it as it comes because it is a very different school of acting, and sort of cracking into that would require a lot more classes, a lot more work on other aspects, and I am enjoying sort of trying to hone this blade as sharply as I can on voiceover. But I don't hate television or film. I've done a little bit. It was fun when I did it. The hours are a lot longer too. There is that. You got to be there way early and stay way late, and that's a tough one.
Yeah, I've done crew for some very long 16, sometimes 18-hour shoots 4 to 5 days a
Yeah.
week. So they are not fun. Beauty
Mhm.
of having that film degree.
Oh
Like
man.
okay, so here we go. Well, you already
Mhm.
answered this. Do you like
Oh.
magical girl shows? Have you heard of Precure? And if so, what's
Ooh.
your favorite series?
Oh yes. So I love magical girl shows. I have heard of Precure, and I don't remember the name of the series, but it was like bakery themed. Like,
Oh, I think
oh,
I've
I can't remember which one it
saw
is, but it was like
that.
they were themed off of like baked goods, and they had weapons like a whisk and things. I think I might be
No,
misremembering. And
I'm gonna
again,
find that for
feel free
you.
to tweet me a correction. I'm always open to be corrected. Um, no,
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean
trying to.
honestly, I am. There's the fastest way to learn things is to have people show up and tell you. It's so if anyone wants to put the energy into that, I'm here for it.
Kira Kira Pretty Cure a la mode is
Ah, okay, that
yeah.
sounds right.
Yeah, because that's the one that
Love that
had the
one.
Neptune and Uranus equivalent. They
Oh,
had chocolate
ooh,
and
ah.
yeah, and what was her name? I'm gonna get it in a second. But anyway, but yeah, I
Mhm.
know exactly the one you're talking about. I don't know all of them
Yes,
either. There's so many. It seems like every week or every
a
year they're coming out with
lot.
another one, which is kind of
Um,
funny.
I have a
Um
soft spot for anything bakery themed or baked goods themed. So that one was like that perfect intersection of things I like. It's like, there it is. This is the one. This is the one.
Well, I got a couple more questions because I know we're getting down to almost an hour now, which doesn't seem
Uh-oh.
like it's like talking to you does
Doesn't feel like
not
it
seem like it's
at
been
all.
almost
This
an
has been
hour. It's
nice.
crazy. Okay, so Power Rangers.
Power Rangers.
Would you ever want to be a Power Ranger? And if so, what color? And since you do voiceovers, would you
Mm-hmm.
be down with voicing a villain in Power Rangers?
Aw, dang. I'd love to voice a villain anywhere, anytime, man. They're fun. Uh, if I were a Power Ranger, like, yes, I'd be happy to be, although I'm not sure I have the physical prowess to pull it off. Um, Black Ranger would be fun. Uh, Probably none of the leaders. I want to be like the cool, aloof one. So that maybe a Blue Ranger. I also wouldn't mind being like a goofy, silly one that causes a lot of trouble, and everyone's like, ah, fine, Orange Ranger. That would also be fun, but definitely none of the characters who wind up having like really serious storylines. Like, nah, we'll just be here on the side chilling and having fun.
So goofy or aloof, basically.
Yeah, like I'm not involved. I'll show up when there's a fight, but like you kids can have your plot without me. Something like that, I think.
That's a good answer. I like that. And then this is the last one. Have you
Mhm.
ever done a horror voiceover for a movie or a video game? And how is that different from mainstream voice acting?
Ah. I have not. The closest I ever came was I made sound effects for a very short horror game called Text, A Summer Story, which doesn't have voiceover in it, but the main character, like you can hear them breathing and gasping and stuff, especially as things start happening to her. So I did all of those, and it was interesting to try to get all of the emotions out with simply just sort of the breathing and the gasping. You don't get any words, you don't get anything other than just like, well, not that. I don't sound like that. But it was very different, and there's sort of like a subtlety to it because horror is about, I feel like at least, the layers where you very, very gradually build up to a big finale, but at the beginning, it's very quiet, it's very laid back, everything is very, very subtle, and so sort of moving through those instead of like a shonen anime where you get to start crank to 11 was definitely like an interesting challenge to go through.
Yeah, I love games like that though because they're very creepy,
Oh
and
yeah,
those scare me the
absolutely.
most. I'm like, I
The
don't like when things are
atmosphere.
so quiet. Like, where is
Oh,
it?
love it.
Like, all right. So I need you to give advice to all my aspiring voice actors out there. What
Ooh,
should they
okay.
do? Give us some good stuff. I know you got it.
Oh wow. I'm sure the same advice everyone always gives about, like take classes and work hard and things like that. So I'll sort of pull out of that and just be like, take care of yourself. This is a very, very demanding industry. It will ask for a lot from you, especially emotionally, and find ways to stabilize yourself outside of it with other people outside of it because the longer you're in it and the more you chase after it, the harder it's going to be to find other grounding spaces. So it's important, it's good. You do like acting as a whole is a very selfish industry in that the industry wants all of you. It wants you to put everything in. And when you're in there, when you're doing it, you're going to have to. But when you're not at work, when you're not there, find spaces elsewhere where you can take care of yourself.
I love it. That is awesome. That is the adorable, wonderful, talented Apphia Yu.
Thank you.
So if you have more questions, please leave a comment below because I will get her to answer them. Stalk her till she does. Um,
Wait,
and as always, guys, if you would like to sub for Jury, hit the subscribe button. If you like news next on Nerd Bell, it's a notification bell. Until next time, I can't wait for you to approach the nerd. Bye, guys.
Thank you for watching my video. I really appreciate it, but hey, the party doesn't have to stop now. Click on one of these videos and keep it going.